All right, well, you're so quiet, I might as well start, right? Thank you for coming. I am really, really excited about what God is opening doors for us in terms of ministering to Costa Rica, and I am so overwhelmed and encouraged by the response. So clearly, if you've already started looking at that information, we've got 3 different missions that we are looking to do this year. The first mission has to do with constructing the dormitory facility that I think I showed plans for several months ago. It's a shipping container structure. We're going to need multiple construction teams to put that project together. We're going to do the Pastor's Wives Retreat again. We did this in 2019, and the response is so great. There's a huge waiting list of pastors' wives that are hoping that we can do it again for them. So we would like to do 2 retreats this year, which means there'll be 2 teams, and I'll talk more about that. And then there's a team mission trip, which is one week, so it's 1 team. However, the idea is that we are starting year 1 of like a 3-year rotation, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. So I'm excited about how the Lord has opened up these opportunities, and it is like He's kicking the door open. So there's a lot happening. This is certainly something that is only going to be accomplished by God's power and in His grace, and so we get to be a part of it, and I'm really excited. And so I'm going to go through these different missions one at a time, and then I do have questions at the end, so you can wait to ask your questions. I think that's probably the smartest thing to do. We'll wait to the end to ask questions, even though you might have construction questions and I'm dying to ask them right up front. If I answer too many questions up front, then you have to stay forever and ever until we get to you if you're at the end. So I want to cover all the information. We'll do all the questions at the end. Okay? Fair enough? Construction projects. So we did a Zoom call with Lamar Sally. So Lamar and Joanna Sally are the missionaries we'll be working through. They have been in Costa Rica for dozens of years and have connections all over Costa Rica and Nicaragua with pastors, their church planting. And so we'll be working through Lamar and Joanna Sally, but we will really be working with these pastors and their churches. The construction project that we want to do is going to require some site work. So when we Zoom called with Lamar 2 weeks ago, by the way, we just sent them a check for $20,000 to buy the materials for this project. So he now has access to pretty much all the funds that he needed. Although one of the things that he asked us to pray about was that the cost of shipping containers has risen. Apparently, there's a lot of ships that are in port and unable to unload, so the shipping containers still have stuff in them, and they're not selling the empty ones anymore. So supply and demand has made the cost of the shipping containers go up maybe by 30 or 40%, I think is what it was. So he's trying to access that and acquire it. Then he'll get them on site. There'll be some plumbing work that needs to be done, some cement underneath them. So all of that is dependent on getting that site prep done. But we think we'll be sending the first team in April. And in the April, May, June timeframe is when we'll do the construction project. And so that depends on when that site work can get done, but all of us can be praying that those things start to happen. When we send the first team down, the first team will get on site. There's some things we know we can do right away, but that first team is going to come back. They'll give us feedback about how big the project is and how many more teams we need to send. But we're guessing that what we'll do is we'll send teams down for a week at a time. Now, if some of you who are interested in construction can do more than a week at a time, and you're willing to go down for 10 days or something longer, you can get more done with the same flight cost, right? So we'll talk more about that, but just so you can get it on your schedule, we're talking April, May, June timeframe. We don't have any solid dates for you yet. I apologize for that. And depending on what your Easter plans are, we may have to put the first team out after Easter, but again, we'll let you know a little bit more about that. So, big prayer request that Lamar is able to get all the site prep done so that first team can arrive and get things going. It's going to be a really important thing that we get that project underway and completed, because we'll probably be using it with the ladies retreat and with the teens later on in the summer. So if we can get that project built, we actually make the way for us to do some other things later on. And not just us. Lamar has a lot of folks in Costa Ricans that will be using this facility, and it's a really great opportunity that God's given us to be a part of that project. The second mission is the ladies' pastors' wives retreats. And we did this in 2019. Basically, we invited Costa Rican pastors' wives to come, and we gave them a retreat, a weekend retreat at a very nice hotel. We paid for their expenses. So just a little backstory. You've heard me say this before. I'll do it quickly. In Costa Rica, the churches are too small for the pastors to be paid full-time. So the pastors have to have another job on the side. But in Costa Rica, you can only have a full-time job. There's no such thing as a part-time job. So the pastors of the churches have a full-time job and then have to pastor the church on the side, which is very difficult, because if you're a pastor's wife, that means you never see your husband. Because your husband's either on that job or he's now running his legs off trying to be the pastor of the church. And when he's on the other job, you're the pastor of the church. So those poor ladies burn out. And, they're caring for their families. And once the pastor's wives burn out, the pastor is done too. So the way that we thought we could minister to them was to minister to those pastors' wives. So just that weekend, bring them to a nice place where they can be prayed over, where they can be encouraged from the Word, and where our ladies do spa treatments and just spend time with them, and they spend time with each other. 2 years ago, or 2019, I guess it's 3 years ago, when we did this the first time, it was such a huge blessing. We sent a team of 8 ladies, and half of them spoke Spanish, half of them didn't. But when they came back, there was such wonderful reports. We wanted to do it again. We weren't able to do it because of COVID. We want to do it again now. And like I said, there's a big backlog of pastors' wives who are saying, please let us be a part of it. So we want to do 2 weekends. So here's the trick about the ladies' retreats. We want to do retreat number 1 on the first weekend, followed by retreat number 2 the second weekend. Now, if you look at the information you have there, the dates that we're talking about are a little fluid, and it depends on what you all feed back to me today. So I need to get some feedback about what you think is the right thing to do. Now, ladies, I'm not expecting that the ladies that do this trip are going to be able, all of you are going to be able to spend the entire 2 weeks out, 2 weekends out. You may be able to be on one weekend. You may be able to do both, but we may have to recruit 2 different teams. Hopefully there'll be some crossover, and there'll be some things we're going to make you do during the week. But so that's what the ladies' retreat is going to look like. 2 weekends, probably about 24 pastors' wives each. And I'll talk a little bit about cost later on, but we will be trying to raise the funds as a church to provide for all of the needs for those Costa Rican pastors' wives. The dates that are possible, option 1 is July 29th through 31st. So that's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the flight would probably have to go ahead of that to get there and to get set up. And then the second option or the second weekend then would be the following weekend. So if it's July 29 to 31, the second retreat would be August 5 through 7. The second option that we could do is to shift it 1 week, so that the first retreat is August 5 through 7, and the second retreat is August 12 through 14. Now, why this is tricky is because the third mission that we're going to do, which is the teens, is going to take place in the week between the 2 retreats. So we're going to be sending people back and forth for that period of time. Did I lose you? Did that make sense? So ladies' retreat number 1, and that team shows up, whatever that weekend is for the first weekend. And then as they're finishing, probably the teens and all of that team is going to fly in on Sunday afternoon, or maybe Saturday, and then their mission will take place in the week, and then the second retreat is going to be the following weekend, and our teens will also be there over the weekend, because one of the things that we want to do with the teens, and with all of those who go, is to be connected to the churches that you're ministering to. So to be there on a Sunday is an important thing. So we want everybody that's on a team to be in one of those Costa Rican churches. So The dates on this are a little fluid. We have the option to go either the earlier side of things, which is to start the First Ladies Retreat on Friday the 29th, and then it would be all done the following weekend, which would be August the 7th. Or we could slide it by 1 week. And I realize that timing is everything, right? So what I need to do is I need to poll you. So if you're thinking, if you got your, you want to be involved in the women's retreat and you're thinking about your schedule, and or if you are a teen or a parent of a teen, if you're looking at your schedule and try to figure this out, we're going to have to nail these dates down soon, and I'm going to ask you about it. Now, one more thing I want to say is this. If we have ladies that are willing to do both retreats and stay the entire week, you're volunteering to help the teen trip too, right? So you're going to be helping out in that as well. So it's not like you're just going to be sitting around for the week. You'll be involved in doing some other things as well. All right, so let me stop and take a poll. All right, do you prefer the 1 week earlier or the 1 week later? All right, you got it? Ready? You ready to vote? You prefer the first week, or the earlier week? Oh, this is going to be harder than I thought.
Can you have one that's either one is fine?
Well, I could. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. So, all right, first week. All right, second week. Either week. Oh, this is I'm in trouble. I did not get any sense at all what to do there. So, help me out here. Do you need time to think about this? Is this not a good time to poll you?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Doing the team one, when schools are starting, is that going to hit the beginning of back to school?
Sure. So let me just ask the question differently. For those of you who are teens, you're probably the most important question. So which is the better option for the teen trip? The earlier option or the week later option? Early? Did anybody say late? All right, so the dates for the teen trip would then be either like July 31st to August 8th, and I have plus and minus after them, or August 7th through 15th. And when I have plus and minus, it has to do with when our flights leave and when we come back. So we want to come back after we go to church on that Sunday. That may mean we can get a late Sunday afternoon flight out, but it may mean we have to get a Monday morning flight out. So there's a little plus and minus. So for the teen mission trip, it would either be July 31 through August 8 or August 7 through 15, plus or minus. All right, so of those two dates, the earlier date is better? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's true, then my next question is, ladies who want to be involved in the ladies' retreat, are those are that kind of solidifies what the 2 weekends are going to be. Okay? Let me talk about the missions trip for our teens. So what we want to do is we want to just think more than just a one shot only in missions, which is what we are really excited about partnering in Costa Rica. This gives us opportunities to, instead of just being a one shot only and then we're gone and never see anybody again, we'll probably have projects every year that we can be involved in, and so there'll be ongoing relationships that we can partner with them. As we do that in the teen realm, the teen plan is this, that in year one, we send our teens down to Costa Rica, and what you'll be doing is you'll be working with the teens in those churches doing ministry, and that's still to be determined what all that means. It will probably involve working with children. So the other teens, the Costa Rican teens and our teens, will maybe do some children's ministry. I think our teens will go into the actual schools in Costa Rica, and as gringos, you'll be able to share your testimony, and they want to hear speaking in English, and you'll be eating in the cafeteria with them. And then at the end of the week, most likely, what's going to culminate in some kind of a youth rally where the different Costa Rican church teens will get together with our teens, and then they'll invite all of the kids that they interact with during the week, and there'll be a gospel presentation at that. So that's kind of what the teen trip looks like year one. we send our teens there. Year 2, they send their teens here. So that's a really cool thing because all of us can be involved hosting these teens and their workers as they come. And then we'll try to do something similar on our side. We'll try to get these teens into Spanish classes in our schools. And if we can get them into our Spanish classes, then at the end of the week, we can have some kind of an event that we invite everybody to, and then are able to share the gospel on our turf with them. And so that would be year 2. Year 3 in this rotation is that we send our teens down there, and they send their teens, and together they do a ministry project in another place, maybe in Nicaragua or in another section of Costa Rica. So in essence, those 2 groups that have kind of been connected in some way for the last 2 years are going to do a 3rd year missions project together somewhere else. I think that that's got a lot of great advantages to it. Now, if that works out really well, what we might find ourselves doing in year 3 is we send our teens down that were part of the first 2-year project, but then we've got younger teens that want to be a part of it. So we may send the 3rd year team down, but send a new 1st year team down, and then they start the cycle again. So we realize that a lot of you have teens that are kind of growing up, and if they're not spaced out just perfectly, they're going to, so we want to kind of make it so that that's not a downer. So all of that kind of explains the teen ministry as well. Now, the next thing on the agenda is costs. The beauty of Costa Rica is it doesn't cost a whole lot to get there. The flights are give or take $500. We know we're going to have to raise additional funds for food and for other things that we're doing, so I'm going to put an estimate of about a $900 bill on this particular trip. So it doesn't matter if you're going down in a construction group or you're going down in the teens or with the women. I think probably $900 is right, that's a plus or minus, so we're going to have to sharpen our pencil and answer all those questions. In addition to what we're asking each of those who go to raise, we as a church are probably going to need to raise an additional $15,000 to pay for the pastors' wives to go to the retreat, because we have to put them up in the hotel and feed them while they're there, and we do gift bags and some other things with them as well. And so we'll try to cover that so that doesn't fall as a burden on your back. Here's the thing to remember, that when you go on a short-term missions trip at our church, we have a budget where we automatically will support adults for $400 and students for $300. That comes out of our local DABC missions restricted account. And so we do ask that you kind of go through the process and work with our missions committee, but we'll take care of that. But then that means that if it's a $900 cost to go, your costs are diminished immediately because of that amount that's coming in from the church. So if that's a problem, please come and talk to us. We'll try to figure out other ways to support you to get there. All right, so that's kind of the funding and the cost issue that goes along with it. What I want to encourage you is that going on a missions trip is not a vacation, right? So you go to serve. We're going to serve them. And I think there needs to be an application process. And it's not going to be like uber difficult to do, but I have put together some application forms down here, and there's a couple questions that we just want to hear your testimony, your experience with sharing Christ, your desire to be involved in this, and we're asking you to fill that out. So I've got application forms down here, and I may not have made enough, but if I didn't make enough, I can get more made for you. So there's an application form for the teens, an application form for the ladies, and an application form for the construction teams. All right, so that's an important thing. And part of the reason why that's an important step is because we can only do so much. So, for example, we can't send a construction team of 20 people at once because you will be just in each other's way. So what we want to do is we're gonna limit the size of the teams. Probably the construction teams will be in the neighborhood of 6 to 8, which we could probably keep each other busy and go for one another. But if you get much beyond that, it's difficult given the housing situation, we'll be staying in the Sally's house. So until that dormitory is built, we can only stay in their house, as many as we can stay in their house. So the construction teams are probably going to be in the neighborhood of 6, 7, 8 people. And if we send multiple teams down, then that gives more people an opportunity to be a part of it. But you see, we still have a limited number of seats that we can take. And the same thing is kind of true for the women's retreat. I'm not sure exactly how big the teams are, but assuming that we're going to have some that will be there for both weekends and some that will only be able to be there for one weekend, there will be a large number. Last time we sent 8 ladies down, so we're going to guess that the ladies retreat, this is an estimate, we're probably going to need to recruit 14, maybe 16 total. And so that may mean that not everybody gets a chance to go this year, but so we have an application process to do that. Part of the process that we also want to do is we want to make sure that everybody that goes on the missions team gets training, because we're going to work and we're going to serve. So we want to hit the ground with some training and with some preparation. And so we've got some ideas for the construction teams that are going to go down. And Pastor Tim is a part of that, and we're working on getting that material together. I'm excited about the teen trip, so let me explain the training for the teens. Lamar has put together a discipleship package that is based on how Jesus called the disciples. He said, come and follow me, and then I'll make you fishers of men, and then go into all the world. And so Lamar has developed this, and he's using head, you have to know certain things, but it has to reach your heart, and then it comes out in your hands, you're fishers of men, and then down to your feet because you're sent to go. And so he's developed this discipleship program, head, heart, hands, and feet. And he's gone through that with a lot of the Costa Ricans. And so with our teens, we're going to have Lamar zoom in and take you through the same things that the Costa Rican teens are going through. So, you'll get there and you'll all have a t-shirt with a head and hands and heart, whatever. I think but you'll be kind of on the same page with the teens. I think that's awesome. And so that's going to be part of the training for our teens. And then for the ladies retreat, I'm looking over here at this table here because Camille Clemens and April DeWitt were part of that, as well as several others. And they went through a big training process last time. We're not going to totally reinvent the wheel, although I'm sure you've got some things that you want to do a little differently and tweak it up. But they will be helping to put together the training and the preparation for all of the ladies that want to be a part of that Pastors' Wives Retreat team or teams. Training is going to be a part of it. Last thing, COVID. So COVID has affected travel. Here's the deal. Costa Rica does not require vaccinations. They don't even at this moment in time require that you have a clear test. But when you want to come back to America, you have to have a clear test. So when Mike and I went at Thanksgiving, we took the test before we went because we didn't want to be incubating it and then get down there, because what happens is you have to take the test the day before you fly out and have a clear test before they'll let you back into America. So everybody that goes is going to have that test. The downside is if you test positive when you're down there, you're stuck. You have to quarantine. So Costa Rica requires that every traveler coming into the country has a medical COVID insurance policy that basically says you're going to have money to cover whatever hospitalization or whatever doctor's visits that you need. Now, what that means is there's a logistical issue here. The logistical issue is if we're taking people to Costa Rica, if you're adults, you're probably okay staying in a hospital for 5 days until your quarantine is over. But if you're a teen, we're not going to drop a teen off into a hospital or into a hotel room for 5 days to be all by themselves. Clearly, if that were to happen, we are going to have a contingency plan to have adults stay with. And so part of being a part of the teen trip is we're going to need some volunteers who will say, I will stay longer if necessary to stay longer. And we will cover that. So part of that $900 goes toward that insurance policy, which was what, $70, $80, I think, give or take that much, and it may be a little bit less now because the quarantine period is no longer 2 weeks, it's less than that. So all that to say, that's part of the cost that we figured in, but that's how that COVID thing is working now. When you get to Costa Rica, more people are wearing masks there than they wear here. And that's all right, we can do that, but there's no restrictions. Technically, they're saying you can go anywhere, stay anywhere, eat anywhere, do whatever you want, because we love tourists. And so you don't need to worry about having to have some kind of a passport or something like that. We'll be able to do whatever we need to do. But that's the COVID information. Okay, I believe that's all of the download that I needed to give to you, and I dumped it on you. Now's the time for you to ask whatever questions you want, and if you have to get up and leave, feel free to do that too. Yes, Steve?
For the construction teams, what skills are the best to have?
What skills are the best to have? So basically, because they're container structures, we do not have to do a lot of framing. So there will be some framing that goes between the two containers to handle the roof and the deck. But the way we understand it, that's going to be steel work, and they're going to do that from the Costa Rica side. They've got welders down there. So we don't actually need welders because they have plenty of welders there. What we want to do is we want to take people who can do, you don't have to do framing, but you do need to be able to do some interior construction work. So stud work and furring, wallboard, flooring. We've got electrical and plumbing and painting and just gophering, which I know is what everybody loves to do. Just go for that tool over there and bring it back to me. So you do need a couple gophers in the world. But so ultimately, that's what we're looking for, just kind of general purpose. And it'd be better to have decent skills than like awful skills. You know, teach me how to do. If you've ever done spackling, the first time you want to sell your house after you've done it because you have to look at that spackling job that you did. So there's definitely levels of skill, and we want to take the best skills and do the best that we can for them there. So there's going to be flooring that needs to be put down. There's going to be electrical wiring that needs to be pulled. We've got some electricians that are already planning out the whole, how the conduits are going to have to be run and things are going to have to be dropped. And so a lot of the materials are going to be in place and ready for us to go once we land. We'll have some plumbing to do, and mostly it'll be interior finishes and that sort of thing. There might be some tiling required. It depends on what the space. There's like a large meeting space between the containers on this side and the containers on that side. And I think he's going to pour concrete there, and he may or may not want to finish that concrete or put tile on top of it. We're not sure. It depends on how much costs of materials are and how much he's got in the account to do. So that it's not like high-end construction skills, but we want to do a really good job. There might be some exterior stuff we need to do to dress up the outside of the containers. We're going to paint it at the very least, Lamar said. But we might want to dress it up a little bit more if we can. So if you've ever seen a rusty old container, they're not the prettiest on the outside. So you can dress it up a little on the inside, on the outside too. All right, good question. Other questions? Yes, Robert.
So if my wife goes on the one for the ladies retreat, will you need a construction team that same week? Or will you be able to use a construction team that same week in between?
That is a good question. So I don't know the answer to it. Here's what I am thinking off the top of my head. The construction is probably going to take place before the teen and the ladies. However, it depends on how much we get done. So when the first team comes back, they're going to say, we got 3 more teams we're going to have to send. It's going to take at least 3 more teams, or it may take 2 more teams. Or they may come back and say, it was amazing how much God let us get done. We only need 1 more team. So it depends. And then the other thing that's a question mark in my mind is the top part of that structure is going to be a deck. And we're not sure quite how to wrap our heads around the deck yet, because there's got to be steel structure and it's got to support it and all this and that. So we may view the deck as next year's project, or we may say, oh no, we can handle the deck too. We just don't know until we kind of get feet on the ground and figure out how it's progressing already. So it's possible then that if we do the deck, we could send a construction team down to work in conjunction with the youth team. The issue that is at stake, and this is going to have to be where Lamar comes to the table, is when we send a team down there, that dormitory is going to be where they're staying, and it's really in their backyard. So the dormitory will house X number of people. Until the dormitory is built, we're going to stay in their house, so we can only house X number of people, smaller number there. And depending on how much that dormitory can house, that will depend on how many teams we take, and then do we bring a construction team and all descend all at once? It's kind of an accommodation question. The ladies are going to be spending their weekend at this. It's a nice hotel. It is a nice hotel. So they're not going to be living dormitory life. They're going to be living resort life. But it is kind of a resort. It really is a beautiful place. And that was one that Mike and I got to go and see it. And I was so blessed because here I was thinking, yeah, it's going to be a nice hotel, quote unquote, you know. But it was like, no, this is beautiful. If we're going to do something to minister to these pastors' wives, let's do it right. And that was a really good place to do it. So I was very encouraged that we were going to be able to do that again. Okay. So I don't know if that answered your question, Robert. Tom?
What type of tools do we need to take?
Yeah, so what tools do we need to take? Here's the thing. If we take tools down there, there's some customs issues. So they have, it's probably not branded Home Depot or Lowe's, but they have those kind of stores that are down there. So Lamar knows that he's going to have to tool up so that when we arrive, we don't have to haul all kinds of tools. Now, we may bring some supplies. And it's likely one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to pack in order to serve. So one of the things that we discovered when we went down is that we didn't check any baggage. We just did a carry-on. But when we got down there, we thought, we could have filled a bag full of clothes. Because these people, I mean, it was shocking to see how some of these pastors are dressed. And we can bring luggage down and then buy coffee and bring coffee back, and you know, which is kind of what we did anyway. So, it may actually be economical to do it because coffee is so much more expensive now. But all that to say, I think we can take some materials down, check some baggage and some luggage, and then just figure out what we're going to do. Just ship stuff back, whatever. But we don't need tools. So Lamar will have whatever tools, and we can send some money so he can tool up, but we won't have to bring welders, we won't have to bring saws. Maybe, like if you're an electrician or a plumber and you've got a favorite pair of pliers, bring them. But we're going to have to check that because, you know, don't bring it in carry-on. The issues at the gate. Okay. Did I answer your question, by the way, Robert?
As close as you can.
Okay, as close as I can. Other questions then? Yes, Jenny.
Okay, so for the teen trip, you said it's like a 3-year kind of process. If you have teens that are only able to commit because they're going to graduate soon and move on to college and stuff, like, do you really want them to, you want prefer teens who are younger to, you know, be able to make relationships?
It's a great question.
With teens?
So here's how I think. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that there's going to need to be continuity by the time you get to year 3. You don't want to send people who have no continuity into the 3rd year. However, that doesn't mean that everybody has to be a part of every year, because in the 2nd year, these people are coming here. So we might have some younger kids who weren't on the trip in year 1, but make connections in year 2, and then year 3, they're fine. They can go year 3. So that 2nd year, bringing them here is a really good thing. And by the way, let's say, because I know you have seniors, want them to be involved, because in year 2, when these students come, they'll still have a connection. So year 3 may be a little bit of a stretch for them to go, depending on what their life turns out to be like when they get in college. But it doesn't preclude them from making that happen in year 3. It just means, okay, we've got some flexibility there. So ideally, we'll stagger and rotate these things so that students can be involved and they're not missing an opportunity to be involved just because they were born on the wrong year. But yeah, I do think seniors ought to be involved. But I also think if we've got freshmen or sophomores that want to be involved, we're going to try to make room for that too. So I'm not sure how big of a team we're talking, but I don't think the issue is Lamar telling us, no, that's too many. I mean, there's going to be an accommodation question about how many can stay in the dorm that we build. But other than that, I think Lamar's going to say, if you send more kids, I'll connect you with another church and another pastor. So I think whatever God makes possible for us to send, I think we're going to send it. Yeah, Craig.
I must have missed it. What cities? Liberia, San Jose, where?
So we'll fly in and out of San Jose. So here's the beauty of why the flights are cheaper. It's pretty much a flight from Dayton, which we fly out of Dayton. That's really the smart thing to do if you think about it. Logistically, it's smart for us to fly from Dayton, and then we'll have a stopover. It could be Houston, it could be Atlanta or someplace else, not sure where, but it's in country. And then from there, you go to San Jose. But ultimately, you're talking about maybe a 2 or 3 hour flight from Dayton to Dallas, and then a 2.5 hour flight from Dallas to San Jose. So you've got some layover, but it's a window of time that's probably less than 8 hours, give or take 8 hours, which is not a bad travel day. There's a time zone difference. I think probably in the summer they're going to be 2 hours off. It's 1 hour off right now, but then they don't switch their clocks like we do. So it may be 2 hours. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Now, last week when we were talking about our Albania team, different situation for them because they're going to have to make a flight that has a stopover in probably a European country. And there are European countries that won't even let you fly through unless you have a vaccine. So for them, they're going to try to find out, okay, can we reroute them so that is not an issue? But for us, we don't have that issue in Costa Rica, thankfully. But we're in San Jose. Lamar lives in San Jose, although they're up on the hill, they're not down in the city. But most of the ministry that we'll be doing will be probably in the San Jose area. So yeah, it's a big city. Yeah, Elaine.
Are you looking for leaders for the teen trips?
Are we looking for leaders for the teen trip? So Pastor Adam and Pastor John and I have talked a little bit about that, and I know that Pastor Adam has some things that he's considering. I don't want to speak for him. I think probably it's still being cooked. It's not fully cooked yet. So the answer to that question is we do know we need leaders. What that is exactly going to look like, we have to still kind of work out. And that'll part of that answer is with Lamar as well. We need Lamar to give us some input there. Yeah.
Another question for the teen trip. So like, other than just making connections with the kids and then also language barriers, will language barriers be an issue if they do not know a whole lot of Spanish? Is the first part of the question. And then the second is, I need to rush on my Spanish. And then the second is like, exactly, are they just making connections with the kids? Are there activities that they're doing? I mean, kind of what's going on that week for the teen trip?
Sure, that's a good question. So I know that they'll be doing activities together and ministry together. And I also know that the way Lamar is scheduling the week, it's not going to be work, sleep, work, sleep. He's going to have freedom to have some fun in there as well. So the language is definitely going to be an obstacle. I think that a lot of the Costa Rican students, and you can look at me and tell me I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the young people try to learn as much English as they can, which is why we're called gringos down there. When gringos land, they want to talk to you because it's a way for them to learn their English, although it's also a really sweet thing for us to try to learn their language and try to do the best that we can do. Clearly, between now and August, it may not be possible for you to learn Spanish and be fluent, but you never know. Maybe you just have that gift, that linguistic gift, and you can do that. Certainly, it wouldn't hurt any of us who want to go to try to acquire as much language as we can. For the teams that go down, the construction team, you don't need to know any Spanish, really. You don't, because we're just going to land, work, sleep, work, sleep, work, and sleep. And Lamar is right there, so we'll be right there. So we probably will go to church on Wednesday night, and you can say hola, and that you get away with hola. But the other teams we would like to have as many Spanish speakers as we can, or people. You don't have to be fluent, but it helps to have people that can communicate. So when we went the last time, Camille, you spoke Spanish. Lisa Cole spoke Spanish. Stephanie Panosian and Renee Panosian had a little bit of Spanish, a weeny tiny bit. And Rachel Stevens, okay. So there were 4 out of the 8 that spoke Spanish, and then the other 4 not so. But it's great to have that. It's not absolutely required. So when the teens go, for example, we'll be connecting with the pastors, and most of the pastors we'll connect with, and their teens, the pastors will definitely be able to speak English. Well, I shouldn't say definitely, probably. And their teens will probably know a fair amount of English. So there'll be ways to connect and to relate, and we want that to happen. And that's the other language thing. It's probably wise to invest in the Spanish-English dictionary and whatever else that means. An app. All right, other questions? Yeah, Libby.
When do you want applications in? What does that timeline look like?
Oh, good question. When is the timeline for applications? We haven't even figured that one out yet. So clearly, if you want to be a part of the construction team, we're going to need to get this ball rolling pretty quickly because we want to train you. So I'm going to say the construction team, right now it's the middle of February, give or take. Tomorrow's Valentine's Day, don't forget. And if we send a team mid-April, that gives us 2 months to get everything in line, and that's a lot of logistics, and to put the training together. So I'm going to say, if you're interested in construction, pick up a thing and get it to us in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to say 2 weeks from today, so the 27th. For the other trips, the teen trips and the ladies' retreat trips, I think we don't have to worry quite so much. We've got several months in advance, but I don't want to let too much grass grow under our feet. So I'm going to say maybe by the end of March, we're going to try to get all of that in. The Albania trip is requiring commitment and kind of money down to hold your place, but that's because that trip costs about $2,000 per trip per person. So I don't think we're going to have a deposit of money that's going to be required, but I think we need to know kind of by the end of March what we're looking at. So I'll just put those as arbitrary dates, 2 weeks for the construction team. And that may be a little bit fluid because when the first team comes back, they may say, we're in for the next 5 months. I don't know. Lord, please, no. But I don't think it's going to be like that. But, we might have additional recruiting that we need to do a little bit later on. But at least for the first team or 2, let's say 2 weeks from now, that is done. Yeah.
I've got the proposed date for the school, for our school.
Okay.
And it says the 15th or 16th of August.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. So that would argue then, if that's the proposed date for like Xenia schools, then the earlier week is the better week. Okay, and I think that's what I was just hearing in general. We'll get back to Lamar and make sure that works. So the earlier week, so the earlier 2 options are going to be connected with the ladies teams and the teen team. All right, other questions? Yeah, Robert.
I thought I heard you say, I'll say it out loud, make sure you correct me if I'm wrong. If you want to go but you can't afford it, talk to you, there may be ways to still get there.
Absolutely, yes. So, when we're talking about, all right, we're going to subsidize you $400 or $300, depending if you're an adult or a student, that's a little bit, and then we're not quite sure what all the other pieces are going to be. So that $900 is an estimate, but if that is really a struggle for you, please let us know. One of the other things is, our church family is behind this, so we're recruiting teams And that team includes those who are going on the plane and those who are not going on the plane but are supporting financially and with prayer. And that's an important thing to do. So even if you are the one that goes on the plane and lands in Costa Rica, you need to get a team together. And you need to be thinking about this. Your team can help you raise the funds you need, but more importantly, they're going to be praying for you all during the preparation and during your time there and then coming back. And so we really want to develop that team mentality throughout, and actually really want to encourage everybody in the church to consider themselves as part of this team and part of these missions. So yes, we don't want money to be an issue or an object. We want to help you to get there, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to find ways to make that happen. If you're raising funds, by the way, you can encourage people who, like teens, you might be able to tap your grandparents or something like that. They can give through the church because these projects are going to be official projects. So the IRS requires that it be an official project because we generate your giving reports. Our financial secretary generates giving reports. So if you itemize, you're able to do that even with these kind of things, and you can give through the church. So you don't have to be a money collector yourself. You can just encourage those who want to support financially to give through the church, and that'll all be part of it. Yes, Janice.
Do you have specific people on the forums that you can contact with questions?
Specific people on the forums to contact with questions? No. But let me give it to you right now. All right. So the ladies retreat, I'm gonna volunteer April DeWitt and Camille Clemens over there. Raise your hands, ladies. There you are. Yeah, they're giving me this okay, but I think they know more than I do. But clearly, you can contact me, but I'm always going to go back to them too. So they have a little bit of an idea, and we haven't met yet. By the way, Joanna is coming up in March, so we will have an opportunity. This is just for the ladies that are interested. Joanna, Sally, and their daughter Alexa are coming up in March. I think they're a part of a wedding. And so they're staying at our house. They often do when they come into this area. And we'll organize a meeting so you get to meet them. And the same thing probably would be good for the teens as well. We'll figure out how to do that, but that's in March sometime. But Camille and April are for the ladies. And you can talk to me as well. Pastor Adam and Pastor John would be for the teens. Now, we might not be able to answer all your questions, but we'll be able to be a clearinghouse and get answers for you. And so Pastor Adam and Pastor John Bright would be for the teens. And then for construction, I'm going to volunteer. Sorry, Joe. Didn't tell you I was going to do this. Joe Hoyt and Mike Hefner. Mike, I didn't. But these two guys have been involved in the Zoom calls and other things that we've done. So they know a lot about what's going on with the project, but again, they still have questions about some things, and we're trying to work through all of those details. The building requirements and codes in Costa Rica are not the same as they are here. So the lack of information is not a problem when you're there, and that's your normal, but when you're up here, and you're trying to figure out how do we make all this work, that's the unknown parts of the construction project, which is why we need their feedback once they get on the floor. Their feet's on the ground, yeah. Passports. Yes, so you need, if you don't have a passport, or your passport is expiring, or your passport expires within 6 months of the trip, you probably need to get it renewed, or you need to get it applied for. And the process has been clogged. It seems to be opening up a little bit better now, but you need to get that job done soon. We can't help you with that. You got to do it. You got to turn in your birth certificate and all that stuff.
Best way to do that online, or is there another process?
Good question. John Bright, how did you do yours?
Post office. Well, you have to call post office. Yeah.
All right.
Beaver Creek one does it.
Okay, the Fairborn and Beaver Creek Post Office. And Jamestown too.
Jamestown was great. We went to Jamestown.
All right, we'll help you. So.
You have to make an appointment though.
And you have to have the right information. So information that you need is online. And Joe, you did your renewal.
You just mail it in.
And you can mail in a renewal.
Yes.
That's how you did it?
Yeah, and it was clogged up, but it actually got back. They was telling me like 2 months, whatever. But it came in like before, I think 4 weeks.
Oh, okay. So that's an answer to prayer. Even still, better to be ahead of the curve than behind it.
Does the applications on there have a place to say whether you speak Spanish or not, and or what level?
It doesn't, but there is a general all-purpose thing at the bottom that says other information that you think would be helpful for us to know. So yeah, like we're asking, do you have dietary restrictions and that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's, would you please share your testimony? Would you please share why you would like to be a part of this? And just those kind of questions. But at the end, it's those specific questions in that all-purpose thing. So if you speak Spanish, definitely put that down. All right, it looks like all minds are clear. All right, so all minds are clear may not be exactly true, but if it's clear enough, I will dismiss you, and then again, you have a conduit to ask whatever questions you have. Let me pray and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the privilege that we have of partnering in Costa Rica in these missions, and I do pray, Lord, that you would go before us, that you'd work out the details, that you would organize the materials that Lamar is trying to put together for the construction team, and that you would smooth that road out for them and let all of that get done in a reasonable price, Lord. And I pray that you would work out all the details in terms of the ladies' retreats that are going and the different people that are applying and putting all of the itineraries together. Lord, there's just so many details that come down to organizing something so that when we land, we can be a ministry and an encouragement to our brothers and sisters in Christ, and to those who don't know you, Lord, to have a ministry to share Christ with them. So, Lord, ultimately, we're praying that you pave the way, you open the doors, you lead us and guide us for the purpose of changing hearts and lives in Costa Rica and changing our hearts and lives in the process as well. Thank you again for the salvation we have in Jesus Christ. Would you go before us the rest of this week? Give us strength and leading and guidance. And I pray all these things in Jesus' strong name. Amen. Thank you for coming. God bless you. We'll see you later.